So I'm going to first take us through the reports and look at Readbasix. So Readbasix will have this overview of how students have done. So we'll see the score and then the total percent correct, and then the recommendation for whether or not students should take Readbasix or Readauthentics. Next, we'll look at Readauthentics. So when students take Readauthentics, we will actually see the scenario here, and then we'll get a lot of information about how students have done. So we'll get the grade equivalent score, percentile, the overall scale score, and then we'll also be able to look at how much prior knowledge should students bring to the scenario, and then how do they do according to each of the Common Core standards. So now let's look at Readbasix. So when we look at Readbasix, we get this first overview of the foundational reading skills, and the percentage below is the number of students who have completed the subtests. When I click on the actual class, I can see more specifics about students. Here we have the profiles that gives a very broad overview of how students have done across the 6 subtests. Then we get the assessment status, scale score, grade equivalent score, and then the RTI recommendation. We've also added growth. So we have growth reports where you can see how students have done across the year during benchmark periods. So we have beginning of year, middle of year, and end of year. And what we would hope to see is that more students are in the strong or high average than those that started the year. And that's for each of the subtests. So you can see as I scroll down, all of the subtests have those beginning, middle, and end of year benchmarks. Then when we go into students, we can see a whole class of students, and we can sort by any of the columns at the top. So if I sort here, I can see how students are doing in just word recognition and decoding, and I could do that for any of the foundational reading skills. Then when I go into a student, so I'll click on this student here, Chloe, we get a performance overview, and this gives us some insight into how she's done on each of the subtests across the year. So we get information that's historical, and then we also give a little bit of information so that teachers can make sense of that data based off of the student's performance. Report history shows us all of the tests that Chloe has taken across the school year. So we see her scores for each of those tests that she's taken. And then we have recommendations. So for recommendations, these are based off of the subtest and then also the student's grade level and their performance on that subtest. So we give the recommendations based off of how students have performed. So here we believe that the student will benefit from a word analysis intervention. So we make the recommendations based off of evidence-based practices and research-backed types of instruction. So we have word connections and rewards. Now, the interventions differ based off of the subtest, and some subtests won't have any specific interventions if the student is at that strong performance level, because that would be an indicator that they're ready for a deeper reading comprehension assessment.